Poor bread seller fed a homeless man every day until he said, "I'm a billionaire." Every morning before sunrise, Amara wheeled her wooden bread cart down the cracked, uneven pavement of Ajagunal. The smell of fresh-baked rolls wrapped the air like a blanket, mixing with the smoky scent of early morning fires and the distant hum of waking traffic. She always wore the same faded wrapper, the same chipped smile. Her slippers slapped the ground as she pushed, humming softly, not because life was easy, but because it kept her from crying. Bread was her life. She sold to survive, not to thrive. 50 Nigerian nairas per loaf. On good days, she made just enough to eat and buy her mother's medication. On bad days, she went hungry. At the corner of E Street, tucked behind a rusted water tank, sat a man she called Baba No Name. Dirty. Silent. Alone. Most people ignored him. Some feared him. Others insulted him. Amara, though. She gave him bread. Every day. No words. No conditions. Just a soft roll into his outstretched hands. The first time she gave him bread, he didn't speak. Didn't thank her. Just stared with empty eyes. She left it anyway. Now, it was their routine. He'd be waiting before she arrived, sitting cross-legged, head bowed. She'd hand him a warm piece and nod. He'd nod back. No more. No less. Vendors near her whispered. She day waste bread on madman. She no even get money to feed herself. Na so dem take carry curse. Amara never answered them. Maybe he was mad. Maybe not. But he was hungry, and that was enough. One morning, clouds hung lower than usual. Thunder threatened somewhere in the sky. Amara arrived later than normal, her cartwheel having come loose halfway. But something was different. He wasn't sitting like he usually did. Instead, he stood. Not tall, but steady, his back straight, arms folded, as if waiting for her rather than the bread. His eyes, once dull and distant, now held a strange intensity, a flicker of something. Alert. Alive. Amara paused, fingers gripping the loaf tighter than usual. She handed him the bread. He took it slowly. Held it for a moment. Then for the first time in weeks of silence, he spoke. His voice was low, cracked like an old radio. "Why do you keep feeding me?" Amara didn't answer his question right away. She just stared at him, heart suddenly racing. The homeless man had spoken. It shouldn't have startled her this much, but it did. For weeks, she'd seen him like furniture, a fixture on the sidewalk, not someone with a voice. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Instead, she gave a small, uncertain smile and said, "Because no one else does." Then she pushed her cart forward and walked away, the old wheel squeaking behind her like a tired companion. That evening, the generator at home wouldn't start. Again. She lit a candle and sat beside her mother, whose lungs wheezed like deflating balloons. The room smelled of menthol rub and warm cloth. Her mother's eyes fluttered open. "You eat today?" her mother asked weakly. Amara lied. "Yes, Mama. I even bought akra." Her mother smiled faintly, and Amara's heart twisted. There was no akra. Only the memory of the bread she gave to that man instead of herself. Amara had exactly 400 Nigerian nairas left. Not enough for more bread ingredients. Not enough for medicine. Not enough for anything. She sat in the dark and counted her coins again and again, as if they might multiply under candlelight. She thought about skipping the man tomorrow. Just once. But the next morning, as the sun cracked the sky open with gold, she baked again. Kneading with dry hands, she whispered to herself, "I will not let hunger make me cruel." She loaded her cart, turned the wheel carefully, and pushed it out into the dusty street. When she reached the corner, he was there again. Sitting. Waiting. Watching. This time, his posture had softened. No folded arms. No sharp eyes. Just quiet. Expectation. She handed him a roll again. He took it, slower than before, then looked up at her like he was searching for something in her face. "You should keep this," he said, holding it back out. She shook her head. "I've already eaten," she lied again. He looked like he didn't believe her. But he didn't argue. He tore the bread in half, then placed one piece beside him on the floor, a small, quiet offering, and ate the other slowly. Amara walked away, heart heavier than ever. She had only 8 rolls left to sell. Even if they all sold, it wouldn't cover everything. Her stomach growled as she passed by the smell of jollof rice steaming from a roadside vendor. She wanted to cry. Not because she was poor. She was used to that. But because kindness was costing her more than she could afford, and she didn't know if it was worth it anymore. Over the next few days, the man spoke no more. He returned to silence like a bird retreating to its nest, hidden and still. But something had shifted. Subtly, invisibly, like the air before rain. Every morning, he was there before Amara. Sitting straighter. Eyes following her cart with calm expectation. And every morning, she gave him bread without asking why. They never spoke again. But their silence changed. Now, when she handed him the bread, their hands sometimes touched. Just briefly. Her fingers were calloused. His were surprisingly clean. One morning, he nodded before she gave him the bread, as if thanking her in advance. She smiled in return, realizing something. She'd begun to look forward to seeing him. But not everyone was pleased. Near the end of the street, a fish seller named Mama Kuti rolled her eyes as Amara passed. "You dey feed that man like say na Pekin," she muttered loud enough for others to hear. "Watch him turn on you one day." A group of other sellers joined in. "Wetin you gain? Dem talk say he mad. Abi na ritualist. She too soft. That one no go live long for Lagos." Amara kept her head down. She had no strength for arguments. The market loved drama, and poor people made easy targets. Still, their voices clung to her thoughts as she sold her last loaf that day. They made her wonder, was she really doing the right thing? That evening, she bought beans and plantain, the first real meal in days. She placed the food beside her mother, then sat on the floor, back against the wall, legs stretched. "Mama," she whispered, "if you were me, would you keep giving?" Her mother opened one eye. "To who?" "To someone who can't give back." Her mother smiled weakly. "Then it's real giving." The next morning, the sky was still dim when she arrived. But something made her stop before she turned the corner. A low cough. The scuffle of shoes. She peeked around the side of a kiosk and froze. 2 teenagers were standing near the man. One of them kicked at his feet. "Oga, we dey talk to you." The man didn't move. "Nah bread you dey chop every morning like king, abi," the second boy spat. Before she could move, one of them grabbed the untouched roll of bread beside him. "You dey form silent beggar. You go talk now." But then, in a flash, the man snatched the bread back. Fast. Precise. The boys jolted. He stood, towering over them, his voice low and firm. "Leave. Now." His voice wasn't shaky. It wasn't weak. It was commanding. The boys blinked, then turned and ran. Amara stepped out from behind the kiosk, stunned. He turned slowly to face her. Their eyes locked. "I'm not what they think I am," he said. Then he sat back down. As she approached with the next roll of bread, a quiet unease crept into her chest. Who was this man really? Amara couldn't stop thinking about what she'd seen. The way the man had stood. The speed. The authority in his voice. The boys had run like they'd just been scolded by a general, not a beggar. And now, every morning, she noticed more. His posture was always straight. His beard, though thick and unkempt, was trimmed at the edges. His hands were steady, not shaky. His eyes, sharp, like someone always watching, always calculating. Not broken. Not mad. Hidden. A few days passed in uneasy quiet. Their routine continued, bread exchanged, nods shared. But now, his eyes lingered longer when he looked at her. And once, just once, she caught him smiling faintly as she walked away. Then one morning, just as she handed him the bread, he asked, "What's your name?" Amara froze mid-motion. She wasn't used to this, these little shifts, these unexpected questions from a man who used to be a ghost on the pavement. "Amara," she said cautiously. "You." He took the bread and looked down at it. "People used to call me Chief," he said softly. "But that was a long time ago." "Chief, what?" He didn't answer. That night, Amara found herself lying awake, her ceiling full of questions. What kind of man lives on the street like a ghost, then calls himself chief? What was he hiding from? And why did she feel like she'd stumbled into something far bigger than a simple act of kindness? The next morning brought rain, heavy, relentless. Most vendors stayed home. Amara almost did too, but something pulled her out. She wrapped her bread in plastic, threw on a torn raincoat, and pushed her cart into the storm. When she reached his corner, he was still there, sitting in the downpour, soaked but calm. She ran to him, dropping her cart and covering him with part of her raincoat. "What are you doing here?" she shouted over the roar of rain. "You'll fall sick." He looked up at her. Rain streaked his face like tears, but his expression was still, almost peaceful. "I wanted to see if you'd still come," he said. She blinked. "What?" "I needed to know if you were real." They sat under the shelter of a shop's awning after that. He didn't say much more. Neither did she. But something changed between them. Not friendship. Not yet. But trust. And with it came a strange feeling in Amara's chest, part fear, part curiosity. Because the more she looked at him now, the more certain she became. This man was no ordinary homeless man. "You need to leave that man alone, Amara." Mama Cootie wasn't whispering anymore. She said it right to her face, loud enough for everyone in the market to hear. It started when a street boy named Toby ran up shouting, "That man way you day feed, dem say e be ritualist oh." Amara rolled her eyes. "He's just hungry. No be hungry man go day sit like king for corner. E never ask for money, you know see say e day plan something." Other voices joined in. "Dem say him papa get estate before he run mad. Abi he kill person come hide for street. Or nah all this new scam, fake homeless people way go rob you later." She tried to ignore them, but their words clung to her thoughts like wet clothes. The next morning, she hesitated with the bread in her hand. The man, or chief, as he'd called himself, was already sitting there, as always. But this time, she stood a little farther back. "People are talking," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "Let them." "You're hiding something," she said quietly. "I am," he replied, not flinching. She didn't expect that answer. He took the bread, but didn't eat it. Instead, he held it like it was something fragile. "I didn't choose this street," he said after a moment. "But I needed to be invisible. And you made me visible again." She frowned. "I don't understand." "You will," he said, and handed her a folded slip of paper. That night, in her one-room home, she unfolded it. It wasn't a letter. It was a business card, black, clean, expensive-looking. The name on it made her breath catch. K.C. Owolabi, founder and CEO, Owolabi Group. She read it twice. Then a third time. The name sounded familiar. Too familiar. Hadn't she seen it on a billboard once? Or a bank poster? Her hands trembled. The next day, the man was gone. Not late. Not hiding. Gone. His corner was empty. No footprints. No crumbs. No trace. Amara waited. 10 minutes. 30. An hour. Nothing. By noon, vendors were whispering again, this time louder. She done run mad join am. She day talk to herself now, ABI. She give bread to ghost. Amara sat beside her cart, heart pounding. What if they were right? What if she'd imagined it all? Then her phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. Thank you for not walking away. Chief. Her breath caught in her throat. She looked up at the empty corner. And for the first time in weeks, she felt truly alone. By the third day of his absence, Amara was spiraling. She hadn't slept. Barely ate. The corner where he used to sit had become a gaping hole in her morning routine, like waking up and finding a missing tooth in your mouth. Each morning, she still brought an extra roll. She still placed it gently on the pavement where he used to be. And every evening, she came back to find it untouched, stale, hard, forgotten. Rumors now swirled like flies around her. He done vanish true. She be the last person we talk to am. Maybe nah set up. Use her test loyalty. Nah billionaire disguise prank. She hated that last one most, not because it sounded ridiculous, but because some part of her wanted it to be true. On the fourth day, her anxiety turned to fear. She skipped her usual selling route and walked through alleys, under bridges, and along the edge of gutters. She asked drivers, beggars, fruit sellers, anyone. Have you seen him? Tall man. Gray beard. Used to sit at Ease Street. Most just shook their heads. A few waved her off. One man whispered, why you day find person way no one be found. By afternoon, the heat was unbearable. Her head throbbed. Her cart felt twice as heavy. She sat down on a low step, hands trembling. What if he had died? What if the bread she gave wasn't enough? Or worse, what if she had imagined all of it, made him up like some coping fantasy for her own pain? She buried her face in her hands and wept. Tears fell freely. Not from sadness alone, but from confusion. Frustration. Loneliness. Her kindness had filled a gap in someone else's life, but now that person was gone, and she felt emptier than ever. A shadow fell over her. She wiped her face, expecting a scolding market woman or a curious child. But when she looked up, a sleek black SUV was parked right in front of her. Tinted windows. Quiet engine. Polished rims. The door opened slowly. Out stepped a man in a charcoal suit, sunglasses reflecting her bewildered face. He spoke into a small earpiece, nodded, then turned to her. Are you Amara? She blinked. Yes. He opened the back door. He's ready to see you now. For a full 10 seconds, she couldn't move. The world around her blurred, shouting vendors, passing bikes, honking buses. All she could see was the dark interior of the car. Her heart pounded. Was this a mistake? A scam? A kidnapping? But something deep inside whispered. Get in. She stepped forward, and entered the car. As the door shut, the world outside disappeared, and the ride of her life began. The car interior smelled of leather and silence. Amara sat stiffly, hands clenched in her lap, her heart beating like a talking drum. The windows were tinted dark, the city outside was just a blur of motion and light. No one spoke. Not the driver. Not the suited man beside her. Then, after what felt like forever, the car slowed and stopped. A tall, black gate rolled open. Beyond it was a massive compound, white marble walls, manicured lawns, fountains that sparkled like something out of a film. Amara stared. Where are we? The suited man finally spoke, softly, home. They led her into a grand foyer. Crystal lights. Framed art. Polished floors so clean she was afraid to step. Then the main doors opened, and there he was. The man from the street. But different. He wore a crisp white shirt. Hair trimmed. Beard neat. Skin glowing with health. But the eyes, those calm, steady eyes, were the same. She froze. He smiled. Welcome, Amara. She blinked, mouth slightly open. What is this? He walked toward her slowly, as if giving her time to adjust. I told you people used to call me Chief, he said. My full name is Kelechi Chukwemeka Owolabi, CEO of the Owolabi Group. Maybe you've seen it on a billboard somewhere. She nodded faintly. The bank, the construction company. He chuckled. Yes. All that. Amara took a step back. But, you were on the street. 4 weeks. His expression grew serious. I wasn't there by accident. I was, testing something. Looking for something. Looking for what? She whispered. Humanity, he said. When you have money, everyone wants something. They smile because you're rich. They talk sweetly because they want something. But I needed to see what people do when they think you have nothing. Her mind raced. It felt like a dream, or a lie too sweet to believe. So, you pretended to be homeless, she said, almost accusing. I lived like one, he said. No security. No phones. No name. Just me, stripped of everything, except hunger. He took a breath. And in that hunger, you fed me. Again and again. Not for gain. Not for show. Even when you could barely feed yourself. Tears welled in Amara's eyes. I didn't do it for this. I know, he said gently. That's why it matters. He walked over to a small table nearby and picked up a document. I want to help you, he said. Not because I owe you, but because I believe in you. He handed it to her. Amara looked down. It was a business registration form. Amara's Bread and Mercy, co-owned by Owolabi Foundation. Her hands shook. You'll run it, he said. I'll fund it. But it's yours. Entirely. She looked up at him, eyes wet. I don't know what to say. He smiled. Say yes. The bakery was quiet. Still under renovation, but already smelling faintly of flour and promise. White walls, new ovens, glass display cases waiting to be filled. It didn't feel real. Amara stood at the center, overwhelmed. Just days ago, she was pushing a squeaky cart through mud. Now she stood in a storefront with her name on the lease. Amara's Bread and Mercy. She kept repeating it in her mind, trying to make it true. KC, no longer, Baba no name, no longer the silent figure in the alley, walked in with 2 others in suits. One handed her a slim folder. Nigerian naira 10 million naira, the man said. Amara's eyes widened. It's a gift, KC said gently. To help with the bakery, and your mother's treatment. No strings attached. Her hands trembled as she took the folder. 10 million Nigerian nairas. More than she'd ever imagined touching in her life. And yet, something didn't sit right. She looked up. I can't take this. The room fell silent. Casey's brows lifted slightly. Why? Because I didn't feed you for money, she said. I did it because it was the right thing. He stepped closer. And that's exactly why you should take it. She hesitated. I don't want to feel like I sold my kindness, she said quietly. I want to earn this, not be bought. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Not like a billionaire. Not like a boss. Just a man, quietly impressed. Then he nodded slowly. You're extraordinary, he said. Amara blushed, unsure what to say. Later that day, they visited her mother in a private hospital room. White sheets, clean air, steady beeping monitors. For the first time in months, her mother's breathing was steady. Peaceful. Amara stood by the bed, holding her mother's hand. You didn't tell me you had angels watching, her mother whispered weakly. Amara smiled. I didn't know either. As they left, KC stopped her by the elevator. I'll tell you something, he said. She turned to him. You were never being tested. She tilted her head. Then what was it? I was. His voice softened. You reminded me that wealth without empathy is poverty in disguise. You didn't save me with bread. You saved me from bitterness. Amara swallowed the lump in her throat. He reached into his coat and handed her a small envelope. What's this? My final offer, he said. If you say no again, I won't ask twice. That night, alone in her room, she opened it. Inside was a key. A house key. And a note. For the girl who gave everything, even when she had nothing. KC. She held the key tight, tears rolling down her cheeks. Not because of the gift. But because someone had seen her worth, without her ever asking. The grand opening of Amara's Bread and Mercy felt like a festival. Colorful ribbons fluttered in the wind. Brass band music echoed down the street. Children danced. Neighbors came in slippers and Ankara wrappers. Men in suits stood beside Okada riders, everyone staring in awe. People who used to laugh at her now pushed to take selfies in front of the sign. Even Mama Kuti came, arms folded, expression unreadable, until she finally grumbled, her bread better sweet past the rest Shah. Inside, the display cases overflowed with warm, golden loaves. Amara moved through the bakery like she was born to be there, apron tied, sleeves rolled up, flour dust on her cheeks. KC stood by the window, watching silently, a smile tugging at the edge of his mouth. Every now and then, customers glanced his way, whispering. Is that the Owolabi guy? Na wa o, na the billionaire way day act poor. The rumors had grown faster than the yeast in her dough. Word had spread. A bread seller. A homeless man. A hidden fortune. But for Amara, it wasn't about the headlines. It was about the chance to build. She hired 3 women from the market, one of them a single mother, another a widow. She trained them with patience, paid them more than minimum wage, and gave them lunch every day. Every morning, before the shop opened, she placed a small tray outside the door. Free bread for the hungry. Just one piece. Fresh. Soft. Offered with no questions asked. She didn't need to know who would take it. That wasn't the point. She had been on the other side. One afternoon, a news crew showed up. Microphones. Cameras. Bright lights. They interviewed her outside the shop. Miss Amara, what does it feel like going from roadside vendor to bakery owner in just a few weeks? She looked into the lens and smiled humbly. It feels like bread rising in an oven. Slow, but beautiful. The crowd laughed softly. What message do you have for others out there who are struggling? Amara's smile faded into something deeper, calm, but firm. Never stop being kind. Even when you're broke. Even when no one claps. Kindness is currency, and the world pays attention when you spend it well. The segment aired that night across the country. On YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, her name trended. Bread seller to boss lady. The girl who fed a billionaire. But she stayed grounded. Kept showing up at 5 a.m., kept baking. Kept giving. Because she knew what most people didn't. The real gift wasn't the bakery, or the money, or the praise. It was the chance to give back without breaking. The sun was just rising over the rooftops when Amara unlocked the bakery door. The streets were still waking, distant brooms sweeping dust, a kettle hissing from a nearby food stall. She moved with calm confidence now, apron already tied, head held high. But one thing hadn't changed. She still placed the free bread tray outside the shop. One warm roll. Every morning. No questions. No names. Some days it was gone within minutes. Other days, it waited all morning. She never chased the face behind it. She just left it, because someone once did the same for her. Inside, the shop bustled by 7 a.m. Workers laughed. Customers lined up. The smell of baking filled the air like memory. A young intern rushed to her. "Madam Amara, that government order came in. Big catering job." She smiled. "We'll bake like it's our last day." Later that day, as the sun tilted west, a soft knock came at the bakery window. Amara turned. A small boy, dusty shirt, skinny arms, bare feet, stood outside. He stared at the tray. Then looked at her through the glass. He didn't run. Didn't beg. He just looked. She opened the door and stepped outside. "Would you like bread?" she asked gently. The boy nodded. She bent down and handed him the soft roll. His hands shook a little as he took it. "What's your name?" she asked. He looked up. Brown eyes, sharp and familiar. A quiet confidence behind the fear. "K. C," he said softly. "My papa named me after someone important." She froze for just a moment, then smiled, slow and wide. "Well, KC," she said, "you're always welcome here." He smiled back, teeth crooked but sincere. Then, like it was nothing, he turned and walked off down the street, bread in hand, sun on his back. Inside, one of her workers peeked out. "Who was that boy?" Amara wiped her hands on her apron and said quietly. "Someone I used to be." That night, she sat alone on the bakery steps, watching the stars blink into the sky. She thought of the man who changed everything by being hungry at the right time. She thought of her mother, now healthy and reading novels in a quiet new home. She thought of her old self, scared, tired, holding on to dignity like it was a loose thread. And she whispered a prayer, not for wealth or fame, but for the strength to keep showing up with bread in hand and mercy in heart. Because that was the legacy. Not what you earn, but what you give. Kindness doesn't cost you much, but one day, it might make someone rich, in ways you'll never see.